Welcome to this candidate interview for the 2020 GSA elections. The GSA is the primary representative body for postgraduate students at the University of York and is run by students for students. Joining me for this interview is Purnur, who's running for the position of GSA President. Purnur, would you like to introduce yourself and say why you are running for President?
Of course, thank you, Graham. Hello, everyone. My name is Purnur. I finished my PhD at the Department of English in January 2020, and I have been the GSA President for this year. I am rerunning this year for a number of reasons. One of I can divide them into pre-COVID and post-COVID ones. Pre-COVID ones are actually the same as last year. It was mainly coming from personal experience and difficulties also going through at that time. So while I was writing my thesis, I was also compiling a list of areas that I find problematic, and I wanted to take the lead by putting myself as the president of mine.
I'm just going to stop you there. Do you just want to repeat that last couple of sentences because it didn't come through on the audio?
Of course. So where did you last?
You were compiling your thesis and making a list of things.
Sure. Yeah. So when I was writing my thesis, I was also compiling a list of problematic areas, which I feel that they could have been avoided, but they weren't. So I was compiling a list of problems, and when I kind of come to the end of my research, I decided to take on lead and nominating myself for the GSA president last time in 2019. Because as I said, it was about the lack of awareness about those issues, and they can easily be solved. And my list has been ticked off, and I am quite happy about those. Some more added to those lists, and the current projects I had has been put on hold due to COVID-19 and the needs the emerging and pressing issues, the changes that the policies require to adapt those circumstances, and our attention is needed on those rather than focusing on our campaigns and projects. So we put them on the side, but I would like to continue them. And I would also during this, when I talk about this was pre-COVID, and I can talk a little bit about the post-COVID, because for me, in the last couple of months, in the last few months, we see that how students, whether this is academic related, whether this is financial related, we have seen and we have witnessed so many sufferings on student side. And I adapted my manifesto to reflect those needs, so that in circumstances like this comes again, students won't be in the same position they are now.
Thank you. So you've covered a number of issues that students are facing. What do you think is the single biggest issue that postgraduate students at York are facing, and how do you intend to combat it?
Of course. So I think the biggest problem for me is with the transition from undergrad to postgrad, several things change in our lives. Our commitments increase, our responsibilities increase, But one thing doesn't change, and it is the way the university sees us. So we have this division, undergraduate and postgraduate, but it doesn't necessarily reflect in the policies that these two distinct student bodies have different needs and requirements. And what we try to do, like what is actually happening is when something is put forward for undergraduate students, we try to adapt it without putting much thought into it, considering the postgraduate students' needs. I think this lack of awareness is the biggest issue postgraduate students are facing, and it should be tackled.
Thank you. Now, you talked about this a little bit in your introduction, but would you like to just expand on the experience that you've got that would help you in the role of GSA president?
Of course. So I have completed my master's and PhD degrees in two different UK institutions. They were both Russell Group universities, and it kind of gave me the opportunity to it doesn't necessarily stay there. So as a GSA president for 2019-20, my awareness of wider and national policies, what is happening at other universities, like I have been keeping an eye on those with the help of our fellow student union officers. So the awareness of what is happening both locally and nationally, I think is crucial here. And also, I have developed experience in my role. The most crucial thing that difficulty I had at the beginning of my role is to know who is responsible for what. Because we have these huge titles, we have these huge division of roles at the university, and you have a solid project, you have a solid argument for a single student need or like a collective need. You are taking to a person and you are bounced from place to place right until you find the right person who can help you sort it. So it was about knowing and getting to know people, to lobby in the first place, and then showing the perseverance when you are, responded with a no, being agile enough to going around and looking for further ways to make it happen, maybe in another form, but still making it happen.
Thank you. How do you intend to engage with students and represent them effectively?
Of course. So by listening, because my experience as a PhD student could give me some insight into this life, but I can't, by this knowledge itself, could say that I am representing you all. I can estimate to some extent what things would be ideal, and this is definitely reflected in the committees I attended, yet it doesn't end there. So let me give you an example about this, and it's also in my manifesto. I was thinking a lot about the forthcoming GSA strategy. So if there wasn't a pandemic, we would be working on our strategy at the moment. So our current strategy is out of date, and even though it has been effective for the time it was written and the years after that, the needs of postgraduate community is ever changing, and we should be agile enough to adapt those needs. I even had a slogan for it. It was "Make us bolder, make us stronger," and having this student consultation on every stage of the strategy design, so that students first can set the themes. We work on those themes and then go back to students for stress testing. So it's going back and forth until we find the right and inclusive and also like the inclusive strategy which would make sense to postgraduate students, which they can feel that they are a part of it. So for me, it's the co-design rather than I design it for you, here is your strategy. It wasn't about that. It's about co-designing, and that's one of my aims for the forthcoming year if elected. I think the diversity shouldn't be missed when we are talking about postgraduate issues. So we have 3 categories we always use. These are home, EU, and international students, but it doesn't end there. So I am aware of the needs, and I can like represent those needs for those students. But at the same time, these categories are subdivided into different categories. For example, students with caring responsibilities, students with disabilities, BAME students, LGBTQ students, all have their own expectations. And it's my duty as a sabbatical officer to meet those expectations. Without going, let's give an example, without going and asking a postgraduate who has a caring responsibility what the difficulties she or he are experiencing, I won't be able to go and report it to the university that there is something wrong here, we should correct it. For example, I have been engaging in those conversations with students, with families and caring responsibilities. And one of the things that came out of it is their timetables are not arranged considering their like outside university responsibilities. So listening is the key, and then acting upon it.
Thank you. Now, when it comes to the development of the university, a lot of important decisions involve or relate to the development of the estate.
Yeah.
What will you do to make sure that the needs of postgraduate students are included in these decisions?
So I have been sitting on quite a lot of operational and planning committees related to estates. So one of the things that is problematic with the current estate system for postgraduate students is the fact that we have this traditional understanding of students. Our students are like this imagined like traditional student, the age range is quite small and they are living single. They don't have any families, they don't have any partners, kids, and the rooms are designed according to those students. So I have recently attended a meeting in order to talk about the 2 new accommodation blocks being built on Heslington East campus. And the first question I was asking, can I see the plans, room plans? And do you provide enough space where students can come with their partners and live there? And what would be the cost impact if that's the case? If you are charging double for the double rooms for the rooms for 2, it wouldn't make any sense. So adjusting the cost impact and also adjusting according to the changing needs of students. We can't just design everything with our understanding of undergraduate students. It should be adapted according to the postgraduate students' needs too. For another point is, in these operational meetings we constantly reevaluate the how university makes use of the rooms. And for example, there has been relocation in some departments for postgraduate students. When I have been informed about this, I attended the premises, I listened their worries, I checked the premises myself, I took my notes and take it to the space operations group and reiterated the needs those students have and how these can be sorted. So it's about building a bridge between university and students, and then keeping a constant check whether the expectations of students has been met, and if not, what are the reasons for that. So it's about those bridges and the communication.
Thank you. Now, how will you develop a strong relationship with colleges?
It was a difficult one, I can tell you that, because I have never lived in a college all my life, like all my postgraduate life. So it was, the idea was really powerful, but I didn't know more than that. So the first thing I did when I came into the office is looking closely at the college system, their responsibilities, their services, who is responsible for what, including college head, their presidents, college tutors, all these different aspects and how they integrate into this system, which provides a substantial support system to students, a sense of belonging, which I admire, and I really liked it. In terms of building these relationships, we are in constant communication with colleges. We have a network for college tutors, which should be revived, by the way. And also we are sitting on several committees together with several college presidents. We sit on committees together with the college heads. So it's a constant dialogue and collaboration too. We discuss collective problems, how we can solve these. We also talk about collective events. For example, our induction events have been co-hosted by colleges and GSA, so that we show university what is available for them. We show students what is available for them in case they need it.
Thank you. Do you believe that the GSA Council and the policy submission process are effective in their current forms? And if not, how would you seek to change them?
No, I don't. I don't think that it's effective at the moment. It functions, and we have amazing part-time officers. They are elected officers, and they come to their role with quite a lot of passion. But it doesn't give, the current system doesn't give those part-time officers, it doesn't provide those part-time officers with the abilities to carry out their campaigns. So the policy processes needs to be looked at again, because it's not effective at the moment. For example, if you're a student and if you would like to submit a policy, so you should have a clearer idea of what should be included, the format of it, how should it be written, and we need to make sure that, like, how policies can ensure the GSA is being is a democratic representative body. So one of the things that can be used to tackle this in the first place is making council meetings open to all students. So we need to tell more about our part-time offices and the role of council to students. We need to communicate it better, and also we need to provide students with the opportunity to join those meetings, to be part of it, to be part of the decisions being taken, and to have an inside view of what's happening. But the first thing we should be doing is to communicate what council stands for and how it operates in the first place. So if a student wants to write wants to propose a policy, it should be supported by GSA staff team, so that it can maximize its impact. So it needs to be more accessible overall.
Thanks. You mentioned that you don't think the current structures give the part-time officers the support and the opportunity to achieve what they want to, especially in terms of campaigns. What would you change to enable that?
I would change first the communication we had. For example, what we did over the last year is, so there are sub-segmentation of our roles within the council. I sit in student council and I am responsible for what I have been doing, let's say over the last month. College council members are there to scrutinize that and maybe give some more direction if needed. And their role doesn't end there. So they came to the office with brilliant ideas. Let's say volunteering officer thinks about how they will empower the current volunteering system. So maximizing the numbers, and also increasing different opportunities, working with local charities maybe. But after some time, and with the impact of their increasing workload academically, that balance doesn't been hold. So what I am planning to do is, in the same case that I do my campaigns, when I have an idea and I would like to follow, the first thing I do, I sit down with a staff member and I first give them my idea, sense check, and then what can be done about it, an honest and open discussion about it. I think with the experience that I have, I would like to do this for the council as well. So it was quite helpful for me. It gives you another perspective, the way of doing things, because the staff team and the sabbatical officers have a better understanding of what is happening behind doors at the university. As I said, who is doing what? This is one of the crucial things. And if you don't know the right person, you have been knocking on the wrong doors for a whole year and you wouldn't get the answer you're looking for. So that communication in the first place, better support for council members, and at the same time listening to them. We hold a council meeting and it was cancelled due to some council members other commitments, but one of the agenda points was put by sabbatical officers is, what would you like to do with your role? Again, asking students, asking the people who are holding that role, so that they can change it according to their needs and they can seek support when they need, rather than imposing them on something, on imposing something on them, sorry.
Thank you. Now I've got one slightly different question, and then we're going to move on to questions that relate more specifically to your manifesto and the issues that you have raised within it. So the first question is, what one thing would you change about the University of York, and why?
I kind of touched it like earlier, but that would be one size fits all approach and the traditional view of students. I think we need to move beyond that. We need to celebrate the diversity and the needs and expectation of postgraduate students, and the difficulties students are experiencing are all need to be acknowledged. We can't just say, yes, we have this, it's for you, without actually considering students' views on it, and at the same time their varied needs. Take the international students, for example. Like, they are living and they are being educated in another language and in another culture. That takes some time to adopt. So the education system is different. The culture is different. It's a city and it's a different country. You know, you need to adapt all those things. And it comes with challenges. It's not easy. And those challenges and many others should be acknowledged and acted upon.
Thank you. Now I'm going to move on to some of the points you raised in your manifesto. And the first one is that you state that you want to see the university freeze both accommodation fees and tuition fees. How achievable do you think this is?
So there is a percentage that tuition fees can be increased. For example, I started with £14,000 in my first year PhD, and I graduated something along the lines of 500. So there is a substantial amount there. And what I see, like when I look at what is happening in other institutions in my home country, I noticed that some of the universities are actually freezing the rent and accommodation tuition fees. For example, if you start your study with £12,000, you graduate with the same amount. So there isn't any hidden costs when you enroll, and like what you expected and what you paid are not two different amounts. They are the same amount, and you know it, and you prepare accordingly, rather than increasing that amount every single year.
Thank you. So you talked a lot there about the tuition fees. Do you want to expand a bit more on the rent side of things?
Of course. We know that York is a gorgeous city, and we know that our campus is one of the best campuses nationally, and a substantial amount of our postgraduate students are living on campus. So I would like to start this campaign on campus and freezing the rents as they are this year, because every year you plan the year ahead and the accommodation fees increase accordingly. So when we look at the postgraduate community, I don't see them to be able to cope with the increased costs that come with their study, especially not now, because so many of our students has already lost their part-time jobs, and when they are supported by their families who also at some point lost their jobs, they are left helpless, and I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. So I am planning to ask the university, if elected, I am going to university and propose them to freeze the rent in the same manner that I talk about the tuition fees. So there won't be any hidden costs in the year that you come to university and start living there, and the year you left.
Thank you. Now, you've also suggested the addition of a force majeure clause to all contracts. How would this work in practice?
So what happens with force majeure clauses? Students and university have a contractual agreement, and in this contractual agreement, students are supposed to pay their tuition fees, and they are supposed to attend their classes, do their assignments, and also like pay their tuition fees, so that the university will assess all these exams and dissertations, and when the contractual agreement ends, when the student graduates. And if one of the parties cannot deliver what you signed up for in the first place, a force majeure clause would be really useful for the party who was impacted negatively by it. For example, currently we are in the middle of a pandemic. Quite a lot of students have already left campus. They don't have face-to-face access to their lecturers. Everything moved online. But the changes in practices doesn't reflect it in the amount they are actually paying. So force majeure clause is quite often used in corporate agreements. So it means if one side fails to deliver what they suggested, what they put for as services in the first place, this clause can actually, if we had a clause like this, it could have saved money for students, and we don't have that, and I think that we should have one.
Thank you. Now, one of the other things that you've stated that you'd like to do in your manifesto is put postgraduates back onto the national agenda. How would you go about achieving this?
So the university's minister is an alumni of University of York. If this pandemic didn't happen, I was actually drafting a paper to present her. It's about the postgraduate students' experiences in a local manner, and broader points about the postgraduate life at the, in UK. So the focus of NUS is mainly on undergraduate students, and there is a strong need for postgraduate students to come back to the national agenda, so that the provisions are adapted according to their needs. The same thing happens here. One size fits all. It doesn't. So we need to change that. We need to make the government and the policy making bodies that we have different needs. Postgraduate students have different needs, and these needs to be reflected on. And I was planning to propose a paper. It didn't happen, and I would like to do it this year if elected.
Thank you. Now, I've got one more question, and then I'll give you a chance to add anything in conclusion. And that question is, in one sentence, why should people vote for you?
Good question. I'm experienced. I am bold. These are the qualifications that you will expect from someone who will represent you. And especially in a time like this, I am passionate about making postgraduate life better so that every single postgraduate student could leave the university with satisfaction. And when they look back after years, their time at York, the only thing they will have is the happy memories.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure that was one sentence, but there we are. Right, this is over to you. This is your chance to add anything else that you want to say about who you are, what you stand for, and what you want to achieve.
Last year, I said, together, we are not alone, because that's how I felt during my time as a student, and it was painful. It resonated with the students, and I am elected for this role. And we have been through 2 rounds of strike. We had a global pandemic, and these are really unexpected and difficult times. What I say right now, for the needs, for the necessities we would like to have for postgraduate students, we should get together, as I believe together we are stronger. In this slogan, my experience and our collective efforts will come together, and we will make all these manifesto points up and running at the end of that year.
Purnur, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Graham.